Okay, so let's dive right into a topic that has been absolutely blowing up in K-pop communities online. We're talking about the evolution of beauty standards. Now, this isn't some official story coming from the companies. Nope, this is a really fascinating conversation that's being driven completely by you, by the fans, who are noticing how the quote-unquote perfect look has totally shifted from one generation of idols to the next. So yeah, let's get into it.
So it really all boils down to this one simple question that has sparked so much debate. Which generation of female idols really has the most beautiful visuals? I mean, it seems like a straightforward question, right? But the answers? Wow. The answers tell us so much about how tastes are changing, what the cultural trends are, and what fans actually value when they look at an idol's appearance. To really wrap our heads around this whole debate, we've got to look at the timeline. K-pop history is usually broken down into these generations, right? And each one has its own sound, its own style, and, as we're about to see, its own visual aesthetic. We're going to look at the second generation, which really laid the groundwork for everything. Then we'll get into the third generation, where things started to shift. And finally, the fourth generation that we're in now, which is this whole new wave. Let's start from the very beginning. First up, the second generation. Now, according to the fans driving this conversation, this is the era that basically set the original benchmark. These were the phases that really defined K-pop beauty for years and years, and they created the standard that every idol who came after would kind of be measured against. So who exactly are we talking about here? Well, the names that you hear over and over again, the absolute titans of this era, are Girls' Generation's Yuna, Miss A Suzy, and the late Sully from FX. For so many longtime fans, these three aren't just pretty faces. No, they are the literal embodiment of a very specific foundational ideal. You'll notice their look is often talked about with this sense of, reverence, like it's something pure and timeless. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the feeling behind that preference. Fans use words like classic, natural, and traditional to describe this generation. And that comment is so telling, isn't it? It praises their distinct individuality and this idea that they felt like real celebrities, not just idols. That tells me that fans really valued a less manufactured, more authentic kind of star power back then, a kind of beauty that felt both iconic but also somehow accessible. This is the foundation of our entire conversation. All right, let's move forward. Starting around 2012, the third generation of K-pop bursts onto the scene. And with it, you can see a real evolution in the visual standards. I mean, the classic ideal didn't just vanish, but it definitely started to share the spotlight with a much wider, more diverse range of looks. Fans have labeled this whole era as having a really unique appeal all its own. So the standard bearers for this new era, we're talking about idols like Red Velvet's Irene, Tsuyu from Twice, and of course Jisoo from BLACKPINK. Now, every single one of them is, celebrated for their insane visuals, but fans are quick to point out that their appeal is just different from the generation before them. There's a subtle but really important shift in the words people use to describe them. And here it is. This is the crucial point. It's this pivot in the vocabulary. The consensus from fans is that the third gen aesthetic is all about unique, cute, and charming beauty. And the keyword there is unique. See, while the second gen was praised for a more consistent, classic look, the third generation was all about celebrating a broader spectrum of beauty. It was a move away from that single traditional ideal and into a more varied landscape of just charming and totally captivating visuals. And that brings us to today, the fourth generation, which kicked off around 2018. Now, this is where the fan debate gets really, really heated. The aesthetic of this current wave is probably the most distinct one yet, and also the most polarizing. It's another huge leap in what people consider the pinnacle of K-pop visuals. The faces that are defining this new ideal are IV's Wonyoung, Karina from aespa, and Seleon from NMIXX. These idols are known for their incredibly striking, almost doll-like features. You'll see their visuals get described in these really fantastical, almost otherworldly terms, which honestly fits perfectly with these super high concept and sometimes futuristic themes of their groups. And I think this one fan comment is probably the most memorable and spot-on description of the fourth generation's entire visual identity: sparkly princess fairies. I mean, come on, that just paints such a vivid picture, right? It brings to mind this ethereal, magical, highly stylized look. It's a kind of beauty that doesn't feel grounded in the same natural reality as the second generation. It's more like a character from a fantasy story or a perfect animation that's come to life. But here's the thing. This is the absolute heart of the entire debate. For every fan who loves that sparkly princess fairy aesthetic, there's another one who finds it, and these are their words, artificial. So the very thing that one person sees as fantastical and something to aspire to, another person sees as maybe overly processed or unnatural. This tension really highlights a fundamental split in what fans are looking for. Is it the classic realness of the second gen, or the ethereal perfection of the fourth?
So, after going through all three of these eras, what's the big takeaway? Where does this whole fan-led conversation leave us? Let's try to pull it all together and just summarize the really distinct visual identity of each generation, all according to the fans who follow them so closely. This table just lays out the entire evolution perfectly. You can see the progression so clearly. We kick things off with the second generation, defined by words like natural, classic, and traditional. Then we shift into the third generation, where the focus moves to being unique, cute, and charming. It's like the definition of beauty got wider. And finally, we land in the fourth generation, where the words become sparkly, fairy-like, and for some, artificial. It's really a journey from a celebrated sense of realness to a much more debated, fantastical kind of perfection. And all of this brings us to our final big question. This whole debate proves one thing for sure. Beauty standards in K-pop are not set in stone. They're always shifting and evolving. What seems like the absolute cutting edge today might be considered classic tomorrow. So the question that's left is, as we look to the future, what's next? What will the next ideal be? What's going to define the visuals of the fifth generation? Will we see a return to that natural look, or a push even further into the fantastical, or maybe something totally different that we can't even imagine yet? I guess only time will tell.